Hello guys, welcome to a new video here in GIS Education. My name is Carlos Santana and this is the video number 10 for the course developing a headless CMS with TypeScript and GraphQL. So let's start. So the first thing we need to do, as always, is to update our packages using ncu-u on our backend and frontend project. Remember that you should use the versions that appears on my terminal to avoid any problems in the future. Then we are going to install those. So the first file that you need to open is going to be the next.config.gis, and we are going to add 3 new paths after the config. We need to add the context, GraphQL, and interfaces. So after we do that, we need to include those in our tsconfig as paths. So after config, you need to include also add context, GraphQL, and interfaces. So then we are going to the login layout, which is this file. And then in here, we need to import the use context from React. Then we are going to use our context, user context that we are going to create a little bit later on this video. We are going to include our interfaces here. We need the current URL. We are going to receive that prop here. Then in our layout component, we are going to receive the current URL. Also, we need to extract the login function from use context, like this. And then to the login component, you are going to pass the login function and the current URL. So we are going to add the function in the component next. So now we need to open the login component, and then we need some functions from React element, use state, use context, and memo, and also from fogg-ui. We are going to use an alert, dart button, primary button, input, and render if, which is a component that helps us to render a component if the condition is true. And we need to import, we are going to remove the CX from here, and we need to import redirect to from fogg-utils. Also, we need to import form context. We are going to create that a little bit later. And then from our interfaces, we need to import a user. We will create an interface for props. We will receive a login function and a current URL. Then our login component is going to look like this, receiving the login and the current. We need to create some states. For the form, we are going to create the values and set values. And in this case, I'm going to use email and password states because I need to create that for the inputs. Also, you need to create error message and set error message, and also invalid login states. The first one is going to display the error if we have a login problem. The second one is going to validate true or false if it's correct login or not. We need to extract the function on change from the form context. And we are going to create some methods to override that on change. It's going to be called _on_change. Basically, what is doing this is going to call the onChange with our set values state. This is, I mean, this is good because not right now, but later, if we need to include some slug or some special field that depends on other, we can use this function to make that change in there. Okay, after this method, we are going to create the handle submit method, which is going to receive the user and is going to return a promise. Basically, we send the user credentials to the login method, and we use async await to like get the information right away. If we get an error, basically we are going to set invalid login to true and set error message with the message that responds from GraphQL. If there is no error and the login was correct, then we are going to redirect to the current URL that the user is sending, or to the home page if there is not current URL. In the return, we are going to render an alert if invalid login is true. So that's why it's render if is true, invalid login, and then the body of this component is going to be an alert. So if there is an error, we are going to see an alert on the top. We need to remove this CX. We don't need it anymore. And then in our inputs, in this input for email, we need to pass the function onChange with our underscore onChange function, and the value is going to be from values.email. And we need to do the same with the password. With the password input, so it's gonna be onChange and values.password. Then in the login button, we will add an onClick function. We need to break this a little bit. An onClick that is going to execute the handle submit, passing the values. The values are on the state. And finally, we are going to pass memo to this component. Okay, so then we are going to create a new folder called context into source. And then the first context we are going to create is a form tsx. I'm going to copy the code of this one, and I will explain the code. So basically, what we are doing here is we are using create context. Then the interface we have for that context is that we are going to receive an onChange method and a set value function or method as well. Then we create our context like this. This is just to represent the values we're going to receive. And then in our form provider, basically we have the function onChange, which is going to receive an event and then a method setState. So we get the name and the value from the target element, or the target event. And then if has name, then we use the setState function, and we are passing the previous state and adding the new value with that name. So for example, my input has name email and name password, and then has some value. So basically on the onChange, I'm passing email here and the value of the email, or password and the value of the password. And then the set value is like a single function to use it. We are not going to use that right now, but later on the course we will use it. And then in the context is whatever we want to export. So we want to export the onChange and the set value. And we pass that context into our value prop in our form context provider. And then we render the children here and we export our form provider. The other context we need to create is going to be the user.tsx. And this one is going to handle the login and other methods related to the user. So basically in here is pretty much similar to the form context. We are using create context, but here we're going to use a mutation, GraphQL mutation. We are going to create this one later. The login mutation. This one is going to receive the login function. And then using, we are going to use React cookie with the use cookies hook. So basically here the first one is cookies, if you want to read all the cookies you want, but right now we don't need to read any cookie, we just need to set. So that's why we put like that, and then the second parameter is the set cookie. With this use mutation and passing the mutation, basically we are going to get a method to execute that mutation from Apollo. So basically this is the login function that where we are going to receive an input with email and password, and then we are going to call our login mutation. The variables we are going to send is the email and password that we are going to receive from the input email and input password. So if you see that, then if the data exists, basically we are going to set a cookie call AT, that means access token, with data login dash that login that token. And then if you remember, on the last video we did like the login functionality and we retrieved the token if everything is okay. So that's how we get that. If there is an error, we just basically return a GraphQL error, and then we export our login function to the context like this. We need to create a new folder called GraphQL on source, and then inside we will create a user directory, and then inside we need to create our login.mutation.ts, which basically is a mutation we are going to execute. We're going to execute mutation login. We are passing the email and the password, and then we are executing the actual mutation login, passing the input email and the password, and it's going to return a token. So this is a token we need when we log into the site. So in here, if you see, once we execute the mutation and we get the data login, we have data login that token. So this token is coming from here. Okay, later we need to go, well, we need to create another folder called interfaces to create some interfaces for our some of the models we have. So in here we are going to call index.ts. So these are gonna be your interfaces, one for app and one for user. And as well we need types, as you see here, that lives on the same directory. So you need to create types.ts, and those are gonna be your types here. The app is gonna have app name, identifier, icon description, the username, password, email, privilege, active. When you see this question mark, means that it's not mandatory and that can be empty. If it doesn't have that, then means it's mandatory. Now we need to go to our pages, users, login, and in here was very basic page, but now we are going to change some stuff. So we need the React element is browser function from fogg-utils. We need to import our context here. And then our login page is gonna be like this. The current URL is going to ask if it's a browser, if it's client. Basically, we are going to get from window location search, we are going to replace the redirect to, and we are going to get the URL that is there. Otherwise, it's going to be empty. So for example, if we go to /dashboard directly, but we don't have any session, we are going to redirect. We're going to pass this query redirect to, and then slash. We're going to redirect to the login with this query redirect to that /dashboard. So once the user connects, they can be redirected directly to the page they want to be redirected. So in this one, we need to pass the user provider, the form provider, and then the login layout is going to passing the current URL here. Then in the server, we are going to include a middleware that we are going to create to validate if a user is connected or not, and to validate that on the routes that we have. So for example, on login, well, I'm not sure if you know how the middlewares in Node works, but basically you're getting a route, and then there is a function. I mean, normally you have here your request and response, and sometimes you will see some next function here. So if you just have a response or you return something on a route, basically the request is going to end. But if you pass the function next, you are going to jump to the next function or the next middleware. So in this case, I have a middleware called isConnected, which I'm going to show you a little bit later. IsConnected false means that if the user access to /login, he needs to be offline. He don't need to have a session. If he has a session already and he's connected, then we should not let him see the login page, right? Because it doesn't make sense. Like if a user is already connected, we should not display the login page. But it's different what is going on the dashboard. So this route on the dashboard was open before, like anyone can visit /dashboard, but now it's gonna be like this. /dashboard, the second parameter is the middleware is connected true, means the user needs to have a session. The second parameter is an array of permissions that we are going to allow to visit. In this case, we have 3 permissions: God, which is like a super administrator; admin, which is just a regular admin; and then editor. I have a 4 permissions, or whatever you want to call. The last one is just visitor or guest or whatever. So those ones are like regular users. So this one is saying I need the user to be connected, being or having one of these 3 privileges. And then the third parameter is the redirect to. So if the user is not connected or doesn't match to any of these privileges, we are going to redirect them to /login redirect to /dashboard. And then we're going to render the dashboard page as we did before. Okay, so now we are going to go to share, leave, and we will create a new file called jwt.ts where we are going to validate the login, or I mean the token of the user. So in here we need to import JSON Web Token, JWT, we need to get base 64 from fogg-utils. We need to get the config. We're going to extract the secret key from the security node in config. We have the function JWT verify, which is going to accept an access token and a callback. And then JWT.verify is passing the access token, the secret key, and then is returning a callback with error and the access token data. If we get an user from the access token data, I mean, if we get an error or not a user, like we get false or something like that, probably there is wrong login or whatever, or the token expired already, we are going to return the callback with false. Otherwise, if the user has something, we are going to pass get base 64 method with the user, because the user is going to be parsed with base 64 to obfuscate it a little bit. Once we have the user data, we pass that on the callback. So basically here, let me do this a little bit smaller. So basically here we have another function called get user data, where we are passing an access token. And we need to do this user promise, new promise, resolve JWT verify, which is this function. We are passing the access token, and then the callback we are going to pass is the user. If the user exists, then we are going to resolve the promise with this user, which we are going to get it right here with the await. We are going to get the JSON data of the user here. So after we do that, we need to create a new folder inside live. It's called middlewares, where we are going to create a middleware is connected that I showed you before. So we need to create a user.ts file inside. And basically, this is the last file. So basically in here, we need to get the method we created on the JWT, get user data. This is the method we have is connected. We have the first parameter is logged as true by default. The privileges by default is just user and redirect to the home page. To something, I mean, if you call something middleware in Node, is because you have a request, response, and next. Otherwise, it's not like a middleware. Basically here, we're going to get the user using get user data and passing our cookie, request that cookies that access token. Remember that this AT cookie, we set it on the user context on the front end. So if we don't have a user or is not logged is false, we are going to return next, which means it's going to allow to execute the next method or the next middleware. But if the user exists and the is logged is true, then we need to do a bunch of validations for the privileges. If in the array of privileges exists God and the user privilege is equal to God, then we need to allow them to access, executing next. If he's admin and if the permission admin is on the array and the privilege of the user is admin, we do the same. Also from the editor and for the user. So if none of these matches, basically because they are not logging in correctly or they don't have permissions, we are going to redirect them to redirect to parameter. Or if maybe a user exists but is login is false, or a user doesn't well, I'm not sure. if this if is not like passed correctly, then it's going to redirect also to the redirect to. So it supposes everything we need to do. So let's run our project. So basically, okay, so if we go to localhost and then we go to /login. Oh, I think I already have a session. Let me clean up my cookies. Yeah, remove this guy here. Okay. So if I'm going to log in, you see that the first time redirects me to the home page, right? Because I already had a session before. I mean, I was doing some testing before. But now, the first time I accessing here, I don't have a session active, so I'm going to see the login. But what happens if I try to access to /dashboard directly? You will see that now automatically it's going to redirect me to login, and then it's going to pass the query redirect to /dashboard. That means when I get login here, I'm going to be redirected to this path. So what happens if we try to log in with incorrect credentials? We are going to get this error, invalid login. So basically, we are executing or mutation. I don't know if you can see here the mutation login, and is responding invalid login. So that's why we saw this part. So my user is carlos.santana@dev.education. My password is 1234567 So now I try to log in correctly. What is going to happen is that it's going to redirect me to the dashboard which was on the query on the URL. And now if I go to login again, now I have session. If you go to application here, you will see my session here. And if you see this session is a base64 code, which is like, I don't want to say encrypted because it's not encrypted, but it's like obfuscated a little bit. So for example, here in the user, here we are like saving the actual token. And then in the backend, if you remember from the last video, if you go to GraphQL resolvers user, the login, well, it's executing the login here. So once it's getting the user, is validating the password if it's a password match, if it's active, then the create token function here, right here. So the token is being saved with a base64 function, set base64, and we are encrypting with our secret key and then the password. Well, that's the actual password, but also the data of the entire user data is saved with base64, which basically is what we save on the JWT token. So that's why you see this cookie with this long code, but basically it's just a little bit obfuscated. So that's it for this video. I hope you like it. If you have any question, please feel free to drop a comment, or I invite you to subscribe or to join to our Slack community. The link is on the description. If you like the video, please share it with your friends and also subscribe to this new channel. So thank you for your time and see you in the next video. Bye.